What is going on, guys? Welcome back to this video tutorial. In this video, you and I is going to build Android game app, and the game is Tic Tac Toe. So the rules are really simple. Two players comes in and one of the player picks a spot and the second player picks a different spot until one of the player wins. So before we start coding, if this is your first time here and you want to learn more on how to build mobile applications, web development, and programming tutorials in general, please subscribe and click on the bell notification so that you do not miss on anything. So without further ado, let's get started. To start a new project, go to File, and then go to New, and then pick New Project, and then select Empty Activity, click Next, and name your app. Click on Finish. Alright guys, so to build the UI for your app, go to activity-main.xml. Let's hide this for a moment. And then you can build your UI in two ways. It's either to drag and drop these components to your UI, or you go to straight with coding. So to show you how to drag and drop components to your UI, you can just pick the components that you want and then pick one of these and just drag it to your UI. And just like that, you can style your component here. But for me, I feel more comfortable coding these components. And I think it's really useful for you guys to understand how the code built in XML. However, feel free to do this if you want to follow me step by step on how to create our UI. I am going to do this in the XML code. So to start our app, we need two text views on the left corner right here for player one. So text view, and then give it a width and height, wrap content. For this one, we need a wrap content for this as well. And do not forget to give an ID for this text view. So just type ID and then give it an ID of player one. So player one. And then we need a text. And then we call it player one. We need to set a margin top and left so that it will not be stuck here. So margin top. And then we give it a margin top of 5 dp, and then we give it a margin left, so a margin left of 15 dp would be good. I think we need to set the text size, so text size of 20 sp. I think that would be cool. We need to set constraint top to the top of parent, and then we need to set constraint and then we need to set constraint left to the left of parent as well. So constraint left to the left of parent as well. And yeah, and then you need to close this. So once we have done this, you need to create a different text view, and this time it's for the score. So we will have wrap content as well, and wrap content, and give it an ID. Do not forget this. This is really important. So an ID of player one score as an ID for this one. And then you can set a text for this as 0, but this would be updated in main activity.java later on. And you need to set a text size of 25 sp. And now, as you can see, number 0 got stuck to the left corner because we have not set constraints layout to this component. So to add a constraint for this, you need to have a constraint top to the bottom of player one. And this will set it to the bottom of player one. And then we need to have constraints left to the left of player one. And we need to give it a margin left so that we push here up to there. So margin left of 40 dp. And I think this is it for player one. So just close that. And now we need to do the same for player two. So text view, wrap content, and then we set it an ID of player 2, and then you need to set a text identifying player 2, and then set a size for the text, which is 25 sp. And then we need to set some constraints so that we will position it in the opposite side. So to the top of parents, constraint right to the right of parent as well. So this would go there. And then we need to set some margin right to this one. We give it a 15 dp, margin top of 5 dp, I think the size of this is too much. We would do the same for the first one, which was 20 SP exactly. We will have 20 SP for this one as well, so that we have them match. I think this is it for that. And then we need to have a different text view, wrap content, and then we need an ID of player 2 score and a text of 0, and then text size of 25 SP. And we need to set some constraint for this. So constraint top to the bottom of player 2, and we need to set constraint right to the right of same player 2, and then we need to set some margin. So margin right of 35 dp, and then once we set this, now we need to have another text view, a bigger one here, to identify who is winning. And to do this is very easy as well. So text view, for the layout width we can go with match parent, and this would go up to the parent borders. And then for the height we can still go with wrap content, and do not forget to give it an ID as well. So an ID of player status. You need to set text size of 20 SP, and then text alignment to center. So if you have text here, and let's say player 1 is winning as an example, and we will remove it later on, and we keep updating this in the logic of the app. So constraint top to the bottom of ID player, we can set it to player 1 score, and this would go right below the score of player 1. So this is good. And you can still go and give it constraints left and right so that it will work on different devices as well. So constraint left to the left of, you can just go for the parent, and then app constraint right to the right of parent as well. This is it. And now we need to create 9 buttons. So just go with button, and then we will set it 135 dp, and then we will set the height to 135 dp as well, so that we will have a nice square. Do not forget to give it an ID, and then this is btn underscore 0, and we need to set a text size of 60 sp. You can go with a text of X, for example, to see the result, but we need to remove the X because we would like to set it dynamically based on the players. So player 1 should be X, and player 2 should be an O, and we need to set the text style to bold, and then we need to give it a background color. And the background color, we can go with the background tint, and for me to pick a color, I usually go to HTML color codes. So I'm going to pick this color for the buttons, so just copy paste this, but go ahead and pick a different color if you do not like this one. Once you paste it here, you will have a background color for this, and then you need to set text color to white. So just pick a constraint top to the bottom of player status. You need to have a constraint left to the left of what? Parent, basically, because there is nothing else to the left of this. You can set some margin left, 3 dp, so margin top 15 dp, and this is it, guys, for the first button. And you can just remove this X, and then you can remove who is winning, because later on we will add it to the Java. Alright guys, so next you need to create 2 more buttons in this same row. So just copy this button, and then go down below, just paste it here, and then change the ID, because you cannot have duplicate IDs. So this should be 1, and then you need to play with the constraints, because you cannot place it on top of the first one. And for this should be constraint top to the top of, not to the bottom, however to the top of, so btn 0. So constraint left to the right of button 0 as well. So button 0. And you need to remove the margin left and right for these. And now just copy this for the third button and paste it here, and then replace this to 2. And then however, you need to change this to button 1 and then this to 1 as well. And here you go. So to save time, I will do the rest of the buttons and show it to you guys. So alright guys, I have finished the rest of the buttons, but you need to make sure that for the second row you need to set constraint top to the bottom of button number 0, and then constraint left to button number 0 as well, so that we will have it aligned to this one. And then for the next button, we just do just as a button number 1. So you just need to go to the top of the previous button and to the left of the right of the previous button. And you keep doing this. And once you get to the last row, you need to set it to the bottom of button number 3, because we have this one is 0, 1, 2, 3, and this should be below number 3, and then to the left of number 3 as well. And for the rest of the buttons, just like previous ones. So you just go to the top of the previous button and to the left of the right of the previous button. So once we have done this, we need to have the last button for the reset game. So just go with button and then go with match parents and then give it a height of 60 dp, and do not forget to give it an ID of reset game, text of reset game, and then you need to give it a text color of white, and I need to give it a background color, and I will pick this color. So just paste it here, and then you need to set a text size of 20 sp and a text style of bold. So we need to add constraint top to the bottom of btn. So if this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we will go with 6. And it's good practice to give it constraint left and right. So parent and then constraint right to the right of parent as well. So to see our result of the app, you just need to run your app. So yeah, this is our app. You cannot interact with it because we have not created the logic behind the app. And this is what you do in a bit. And I think this looks awesome. So guys, let's deep dive into the logic of the app, and we will start in main activity.java. Alright guys, so now we need to create few private variables for these text views, and then we need to create private variable with a type of buttons for one of each of these buttons, and one more private variable for reset game button. So you need to go to your public class and create your private variables here. So private text view, and then create 3 variables. The first one should be for player 1 score, and the second one would be for player 2 score. So player 2 score. And the third one would be for player status. And now you need to create 9 more variables for these buttons with a type of button. So we will create a private array with a type of button. So private button, and then this is array, and then we will call it buttons equal to new button, and we give it a length of 9. And we need one more button variable for the reset game with a type of button as well. So private button and then reset game. And now we need to create few more integer variables. So the first one would be for integer variable to count the score of the first player. So private int, so we will call it player 1 score. And then we need to do the same for the second player. So player 2 score count. And then we need to have a round count, so that we will keep adding 1 to this round count until we get to 9, and then we stop the game, because simply there are 9 buttons. And you need to have one more boolean variable to switch between the players. So boolean, we call it active player. So we need to have an array of game state. So basically we need to keep track of each one of these buttons, whether it's an X or O. So for player 1, we give it 0. And for player 2, we give it 1. For empty buttons, we give it 2. And this is it. So integer array, and we will call it game state. And obviously this is an array, and we can populate it straight because all of our buttons are 0 in the beginning. So we need to put 9 2s. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So once a player picks one of these buttons, we should update that button to 0 or 1 so that we will keep track the game state. And then we need to identify all the winning positions. So the winning positions either should be rows or columns or diagonals. So this is button number 0. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we need to have a nested array for winning positions. So integer provide 2 brackets for nested arrays, and we will call it winning positions. And now we need to have an array for the rows. So first winning position for the rows would be button number 0, 1, and 2. So just write 0, 1, and 2. And then for the second one, it would be, if this is 2, then 3, 4, 5. So 3, 4, 5. And the third one, obviously, the last row, 6, 7, and 8. And these are for the rows. And then we need to set it for the columns. And so 0, if this is 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0, 3, 6. So 0, 3, 6. And the second one would be 1, 4, and 7. 1, 4, and 7. And the last one should be 2, 5, and 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 and 5. 6, 7, 8. So 2, 5, 8. And columns. And the last 2 position winning is the diagonals. So this should be 0, 4, and 8. 0, 4, and 8. And the next diagonal should be 2, 4, and 6. So 2, 4, and 6. And this should be for the cross. And do not forget to provide commas, because this is a nested array. So once we have created all of these variables, we need to initialize these variables in the onCreate method. So this is the onCreate method. You need to go inside the onCreate methods, and then you need to initialize the variables for player 1 score, for example, and then you need to call findViewById, and then go to resources ID, and then pick the ID for this text view. And as you remember, we gave each one of these components an ID. For example, this is the ID of player 1 score. So just provide player 1 score, and do not forget to cast this to a text view. This is really important, and you need to do the same for the rest of the buttons. So player 2 score equal to text view, and then find by ID, then resources, then ID, then player 2 score. And now we need to do this for the player status, and this is same. So text view find by ID, then resources, then ID, then player status, and we have a button of reset game. We need to cast it to button, and then same find view by ID, then resources, then ID, and then reset game. And however, for the 9 buttons, we can keep doing this, but we can do it in a better way. We can just have a for loop to loop through the array that we have created up here, the 9 buttons, and then we initialize them one by one. So to do this is integer I equal to 0, and then I is less than buttons dot length, and then increment I by 1 so that we iterate through the array. And we need to get the IDs. So if you remember, we set it to 0 and 1 and 2 and so on. So we know this is constant. We have btn underscore for all of these buttons, but this could be changed, and we can replace this with an I of the array. So we need to create a string of button ID, and then we can have a btn underscore like that, and then we concatenate I to this. So we will have btn 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 8. And once we have the string, we need to initialize all of the buttons that we have created, but we cannot just replace this string into the findViewById, because a findViewById function will not accept a string as an argument. We need somehow to change this string, something like that. And to do that, you need to create int resource ID called getResources function. So resources function, and then get identifier, and it will accept a string name and then ID as a type, and then the package name. So we will give it a button ID, and then we will give it ID as a type, and then we will call get package name. And this would turn this string into something similar like that. And now you need to initialize the buttons. So buttons number 0, so I, and you need to cast it to buttons, and then find view by ID, and then just put resource ID to this. We need to set onClickListener for all of the buttons so that these buttons would be in the state of listening. So if one of these buttons has been pressed, it will immediately identify this button has been pressed. And to do that is just go for button number 0, which is I, basically reiterating through the buttons, and then we go and set onClickListener, and then just write this. And once you write this, would give us an error because we need to implement onClickListener, view onClickListener, and this would give us an error as well because it's an abstract class. And to resolve this, just go to this drop down and then implement methods, and then implement onClick void method. And once you insert it, we will have a new method called onClick. So to test this, you can just go to log.I, and then you can set this as test, give it a message, button is clicked. So to test that, to see if it works, so if you press that, as you can see, button is clicked. If you press this, has been clicked, has been clicked, has been clicked, has been clicked. So it works perfectly, and just remove that because it works perfectly. And then you need to initialize some more variables. For example, the round count, we will set it to 0 in the beginning of the game. We will increment it later on, and then player 1 score count would be 0 in the beginning as well. So player 2 count would be 0 as well. And you need to set active player to true so that the turn would be for the first player, and we will turn it to false for the second player. And now once we have created and initialized all of these variables, we need to work on the logic in the onClick method. So we need to do some validations in the beginning. So if a button has been pressed, it cannot be pressed again, so that the second player should not press the first player's button. So you need to have an if statement. So if we need to have 3 of these, so in the middle you will write button, and then for the second one would be V, and for the third one would be not. And you need to go to get text. We need to get the text of the button, and then we need to convert it to a string, and then we need to check if it's equal to an empty string. So this would negate it. So if it's not empty, then just return. So this would always check. If it's not empty, then just go out of the function. And now we need to identify which button has been pressed and take the ID of the button and then modify this array. So if the button 0 has been pressed, we should identify this. If a button of, let's say, 5 has been pressed, you should identify this. Or if it's a button 8, then change this. And we need to update this game state so that we keep track of the game. So first we need to assign the button ID as a string. So string button ID, V for the button variable, and then get resources, and then get resource entry name. So go for the same button and get the ID of the button. So once you have ID of the button, which is btn0 or btn_1, btn_2, and so on. Once one of the buttons has been pressed and we have the ID, we need to substring it to the number of the button, so whether it's 0, 1, or 2, or 3, and so on, so that we have the index of the game state. So create an integer variable, call it game state pointer, and call the button variable string that we have just created. So you need to substring it from button ID length -1. So start from the end -1 and then go up to button length, so that you will get the last character of the string. So as an example, if you have a btn_2, if number 2 has been pressed, so this btn_2 would be stored in btn ID, and then for the second variable we are trimming or cutting all this and we keep only 2. So that means button number 2 has been pressed, and this should be number 2 index for the game state. So this is 0, 1, 2, and we will identify only this. And this is how we keep track of the game state. And now we have an error because we are assigning a string to an integer. We need to cast it to a string, integer dot parse int, and provide this string to the function. And this is it. And this would become 2 because we are trimming all that. We need to check which player is playing. As you remember, we had the first player is playing. So if active player is true, if the first player is playing, then we need to change the text of the button to X, and then change the color of X, and then store the ID in the game state. So for button V, we need to set text to X, and you need to do the same for the color. So we need to change the color of X dot set text color, and then you need to have color dot parse color, and then provide this color. So put the hashtag in front of the color code, and this would set it to yellow. So now we need to change the game state for the game. So game state, and then we need to provide the ID of the button. So if 2 has been pressed, we are changing the index of 2. So game state pointer, and then we set it to 0. We are giving 0 to player 1 and 1 to player 2, or else it will be empty, which is 2 by default. Once you have done this for player 1, you need to do the same for player 2 as well. So just copy paste this and paste it in the else, and change this to O for player 2, and you need to change the color for player 2. So copy this and paste it here, and then change this to 1. So once you have done that, you need to increment round count by 1 because a player has been played. So round count ++. So now you need to check for a winner each time a button has been pressed. So we need to create a few functions. So the first function would be to check for the winner. So public boolean, it will return boolean based on whether the player has won or not, and we will call it check winner. We need to set a variable with boolean type, and we will call it winner result, and we set it to false in the beginning. And now we need to check the game state each time a button has been pressed, and check for the winner positions that we have set it here. So each time a button is pressed, we need to get this one, and you need to check for all of the winning positions to see if we get a match of one of these. So first we need to check 0 with 1 with 2. So 0, 1 with 2. If we have 0, 0, 0 here, that means first player won for the rows, or maybe for the second row or the third row, or for the columns, and then we need to check for the cross as well. So this is the most complicated part of the game, but do not worry, we will go through it step by step. So we need to iterate through winning positions array, and just go for a for loop and integer we will have an array of winning position, and we are passing to the winning position array winning positions, and you need to have an if statement to check the game state. So game state, and then you need to check for winning position of 0, so equal to game state of winning position of 1. So if the 0 position of the winning position in the game state is equal to 1, and then you need to check this, the first one to the second, so game state winning position 1 is equal to game state winning position of 2. So if the first one is equal to 2 and game state winning position of 0 is not equal to 2, and then we have a winner, obviously. So to make this more understandable, I will just drop this down and then drop this down. So basically we are checking the game state for the game. So we pick this, and then we are checking the indices of the array. So for the first position, we are checking whether index number 0 is equal to 1. So if number 0 is equal to 1, so if this one is equal to that, and we are checking if 1 is equal to 2, if this is equal to this. So that means all these three are equal, and then they are not empty. That means we have a winner of this position. If not, and then we just iterate for the rest until we check for the rows, columns, and crosses. If one of these are matches, and that means we have a winner. So if you have a winner, then just update the winner result to true. That means we have a winner, and we need to return the winner result. So winner result. So if this is true, that means we have a winner. If not, we set it to false by default and we return the value. We need to create a few more functions, one for updating player scores and one for player gain. So we need to create one more function for updating the player score. So public void update player score, get player 1 score, set text to the counter that we have, but the counter is an integer. We need to parse it to string. So integer to string player 1 count to this one. And you need to do the same for player 2 score. And then set text, and then integer to string, and then player 2 score count. So once we have a winner player, we increment this integer variable that you have, player 1 score count, and then we just update it to here and there. This is what you do in this function. And the last function, once we have a winner, then we need to reset all of the buttons to empty. So if you have X, O, X, and O, and then there is a winner, then all this has to reset it to empty. So public void, and you need to reset the round count to 0, change active player to true so that the turn would be for the next player, and then you need to iterate through the buttons and reset it to 0. Just have a simple for loop, so int I equal to 0, and then I is less than the buttons dot length, and then increment I by 1. And then you need to go through the game state and change this to 2, because 2 by default is for empty buttons, and then set buttons I to set text to empty string. And now once we have these functions are ready, we need to check for a winner, and that should be an onClick function. And once we incremented the round count, we need to check for a winner. So check winner. If it's true, then we have a winner. So if not, we need to check if the round is equal to 9, then withdraw the game. So else if the round count is equal to 9, that means there is no winner, and else we shift players, so that should be active players. So if this is true, we are changing true to false. If this is false, we are changing false to true. And to check for winner, we need to check which player is playing. So active player. So if true, that means the first player is playing, or else the second player is playing. So for the first player, we need to increment the player one score count. So player one score count plus plus, that means the first player one, we need to call update player score, so that we will update the score of the player one. And once we have done that, we need to show a notification in the apps. It's stating that player one has won, so we need to have a toast and then make test this player one. You have a toast dot length short, and then show the notification. And once the player one won, then we need to call the play again function, so that we will reset everything to, and we need to do the same for the second player, but with minor changes. So we need to change this to 2, and then we need to update the score, and then we need to change this to 2, and then play again. So if this is not the case, reset the game, just copy this and show a toast for there is no winner. So to see your result, just run the app. And so if you press this, first player played, and then this and that, and yep, we have a winner. So let's play for the second player. Yep, and this is it. And now we need to see who is winning. So in this case, player one is winning. We need to have a banner here saying that player one is winning. And this is just an if statement. Player one score count is bigger than player two score count. So if this is winning, then we can update the player status. So player status set text, and else if player two score count is bigger than player one score count, we will have player two is winning, and just else, just paste that we do not have a winner. To see the result of that, just run the app, and so now player one is winning, and then player two is winning. Now they are equal. We do not want to show anything. So once we have that, all is left is reset button. So once we press this, everything should be resetted to 0, and these buttons as well. So reset game, and then set onClickListener, and then new view onClickListener. And now we need to call play again, so that it will reset everything, but we need to reset the variables for the scores. So player one score count equal to 0, and player two score count equal to 0 as well. And you need to set the player status to, and you need to set a player status to an empty string. So player status to set text to empty string. And now we need to update the scores since we have resetted everything. So update player score, and I think this is it. So to see the result, just run your app one more time. So if we keep playing, and if you want to reset everything, just click on that, and everything should reset it to 0, and you can play again. So, alright guys, if you made it up to here, I would like to say congratulations, you and I have made an awesome Android game app. So if you really enjoyed this type of tutorial, please subscribe and share and like, because this motivates me to create more awesome tutorials for you guys, and see you guys in the next project.